As we all know, Japan is becoming an attractive location for new business and to create partnerships among the companies that are already established there. We are Sofia Cardoso and Carolina Ramos, and today we want to talk about the aspects that we have to take into account if we want to do a business in Japan. My partner Sofia is going to explain the cultural differences between Japan and Colombia.
Hello everyone. So for this analysis of the main cultural differences between the two countries, I'm going to be based on the Hofstede Insights, which is a model of 7 dimensions which need to be taken into account to understand different cultures, how they behave, and has been really useful nowadays with globalization and the implementation of businesses outside each of their countries. So for the first part, we're going to talk about individualism. This dimension is based on how people perceive success, and in Japan there is a high individualism rate where they tie success to their own assessments, such as their job status, their educational status, and all of these titles that can be tied to a person themselves. As in Colombia, we are more of a collective culture in which the well being of the whole group and achieving things as a group and integrating all of your knowledge cause you way more satisfaction, and you really depend on a good environment on a company for it to be successful. On the second dimension, we have masculinity versus femininity, and this is not about sexism, but the values that are tied to each one of the sexes. And here in Colombia, we have really feminine values in the way that we are really focused on things such as family, friendship, and feelings. This is really different from Japan, where they care more about status, ego, and all of these values that are more tied to men. This is really a big difference between the two countries when they make businesses, when things arise that can interfere between the trading relations. And this is something to have into account that they will not see as important as us. Thirdly, we have long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. Japanese people are way more oriented long-term. This is shown in the way they plan things. They have really specific targets and objectives and really set up short-term goals that should be achieved. Whereas here in Colombia, we like to improvise a little more and are really anxious to get instant results from all the effort we put into something. They are willing to take more risk and put more resources without getting returns in the short term, and we here don't have that, and that could be a really big barrier between a business that could happen between the two countries. Finally, we have indulgence. Here in Colombia, we are really pleasure driven. Things such as holidays, parties, and events in companies are something super important that the HR department of every business has to have into account, like the well-being and making people happy with all of these events that are really separate from what the company does. This is more of a burden in Japan, where they consider all of this distraction and it's not as relevant. You really seek for other things in your job, so you really have to have this into account, the importance you give this and how you show the importance to someone in Japan or when you're doing businesses. Uh, I want to add another thing that is traditional values. Japan really has a heavy importance on their history, on food, and on education. So I really think you should dive into their culture and immerse yourself on their values and how things work there, because it goes way back and it will give you a better understanding of how they do things. Finally, I would like to add that in my experience, I've seen that Japan is really close to commercial relationships with countries such as ours, that is a little less disciplined and have all of the difference I commented you before. So it's really recommended for you to hire a trading company, a trading agent that is Japanese and that understands everything much better to gain their trust. Now my friend Carolina is going to tell you about some recommendations that you should have into account when performing businesses between Japan and Colombia. Thank you.
So the recommendations we want to give are general because each company has its own business culture. So the first recommendation is to take into account the age and the status of the people. In Japan, they think that people with higher status or older people deserve more respect, so the treatment with them or the interaction with them must be different. Also, it's important to take into account that in Japan, the older people have more important roles on the companies than the younger ones. This is different from West, in which in some occasions the older people are not appreciated in some roles. Also, in Japan, the dress code it's very formal. It's more formal than in other parts of the world. They tend to use dark colors and conservative suits. If you want to talk with someone in Japan, you have to use first the family name and then the first name of the person. And in other occasions, if you want to talk with that person, you have to receive the invitation of them or of him to use its first name. In Japan, it's very important the silence and the introverted and reserved in some situations, outgoing attitudes maybe are more valuable or appreciated. In Japan, it's always necessary to have a business card. It's a rule of etiquette. When you go to a meeting, you have to give your business card and receive a business card. And if you receive it, you have to read it like for 2 and 3 minutes. And you can't save it. You have to leave it outside in front of you in your table. The greeting in Japan is not with a kiss or a handshake as we used to do it here in Colombia. It's with a bow. They think that bowing is especially important in a business context because it shows respect to the other people. The way of doing this is first to greet the people with higher status, followed by the elders of the group. So that's all, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much.